Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. Just going to look at and respond to a video made by a Flat Earth denier, SciManDan, who goes by all sorts of other names in the Flat Earth community. But I won't repeat them here. But this is going to be fun. We're going to just discuss some of the misconceptions that people like SciManDan have and push, and we'll end up with 5 flat earth truths against these heliocentric mind tricks. Hi Uncommon Sense, Nimble Horse, hello. Hi Mint Zoo Scott, alright my man. SciManDan put out this video titled 5 Tricks Flat Earthers Use to Fool You. So I've got to thank SciManDan for this. Hello Constance B. Is the sound okay? Yeah? Because it's great. You know, the more these guys talk, the more they reveal about their mindset, and to me it's always been about trying to bridge that gap, you know, create some understanding, because the first thing I saw when getting into this and doing flat earth videos was that people just either deny or pretend not to understand, or literally don't understand what you're trying to tell them, where you're coming from. And basically that is to pick holes in this heliocentric model, because that is science. We look at what we're told to believe. Oh, thank you, Constance, for letting me know. All right. And look at reality rather than models, and realize that we've been given a cosmological model to believe in, which then forces us to believe that we're on a globe Earth. So you've got all these kind of scientific, so-called scientific explanations, but they're pseudoscience, you know? And, you know, pseudoscience is basically a collection of explanations that are just based on a belief. Yeah. So, I thought this would be a great opportunity to just go through it. Yeah. So I've taken some notes, you know, and hopefully can respond in a way that is constructive. Although I know Dan just does this for clicks, and he's not actually interested in listening. And, you know, really, this is what Dan does. He just puts out these videos making claims about flat earthers, but never actually does any scientific experiments himself. He's not done one, ever, I don't think. But just harps on about science. But this is it, isn't it? There has to be a distinction between real science, or real scientific exploration and measurements, versus mathematical models and calculations. And so, you know, the belief that we live on a globe is not the same science as, say, the physics of how a car works, or the biology of the human body, or even the plants and life on the earth. Yeah. And all the other things that use kind of science, aviation, navigation, engineering, all these things. There are all these branches of science that have nothing to do with any belief about the shape of the earth. Things are the way they are. And so what's that? Mint Zoo Scott? I caught it a pig in a poke. Yeah. This is it. And so we can dive straight into it. I've got lots of other kind of things to look at and talk about as we go through this. So we may as well just dive in. And you know, thanks for coming along. Hope you're having a good weekend so far. And Tony Dixon, hello. Hi, Nick. Pseudoscience is just beliefs, faith-based religion. Yeah, very succinctly put, Tony. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm going to use the headphones because then I don't have to turn the microphone on and off when we've got this talking going on. So I know that I'm going to stop it after the first few seconds. I mean, Dan tells some porky pies within the first 10 seconds. But I will try to at least let him say his points. But there's so many times when he needs to be corrected on simply the language that he uses and the things that he's talking about. Hi, Jack Streaming. Yeah. All right, good to see the usual crowd in and some. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's see if this works.
Physics, geography, or even common sense, it keeps coming. We demonstrate basic physics, geography, or even common.
Let me go right back to the beginning.
Clearly one of those things that isn't going away. No matter how many times we demonstrate basic physics, geography, or even common sense.
Okay, so I hope you heard that. I wasn't checking whether the sound coming through, but basic physics, geography, and common sense. Yeah. So one of the words he used there was demonstrated physics. And no, especially Dan, he's never demonstrated anything apart from his ability to twist what people say. Yeah, Nimble Horse. I'll probably end up doing most of the talking anyway. Hang in there. It's all good. It's it's good character building stuff. Yeah. Deep breaths. Yeah. You know, he was going on about no matter how much we demonstrate things or talk about science, it keeps on coming. And that's because, yeah, we keep on trying to drive home the point that you have to just look at reality. And as I just said, you don't confuse the globe with science. Yeah. And no, not one of any of these globe pushers, flat earth deniers, has ever actually demonstrated anything, yeah, to do with any curvature. You know, they might video things, film things, and say, oh, that fits with the globe model, or the globe predicts. I see a sunset, the globe predicts that. Yeah, but very few of them will actually study the horizons, or actually, and no one, not one of them, will touch any kind of measurement or even attempt any kind of measurement. Again, it's all excuses. It's just excuses that, you know, level is curved and you wouldn't feel the difference anyway, or Earth's too big, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, you know, this is less than 10 seconds in and Dan's already telling lots and lots of porkies, misrepresenting himself and misrepresenting science, basically, and flat earth. So geography, he mentioned as well. Yeah, again, no one denies where things are really, but you know, no one's ever proven that they go around a globe ever, whether it's north or south or all the way east to west. Yeah, never been proven. So let's crack on.
It keeps coming back. And that's not because the evidence for flat earth is good, it's blooming awful, but it's because the tactics used by flat earthers are very good at creating doubt. So
all right. Yeah, he said something that I was going to pick up on just now, but I can't remember. But he's now saying that basically he's going to look into these tricks that flat earthers use to create doubt. And yes, in a way, they are, because what we're trying to do is to highlight the mind tricks that have been carried out to make us believe that we live on a spinning ball, and yes, get you to question it. You don't have to doubt it, because all you've got to do is look at real science, real physics, and you'll start doubting it yourself. Yeah, but in you know, the nature of scientific discovery and exploration, then wouldn't a scientist doubt their findings until they could really truly verify them? Yeah, isn't that what peer review is supposed to be? Yeah. Hi FPV, hello there. Yeah. So yeah, in a way, you do have to get people to think. This is what we're trying to do. Get people to think and question. The doubt will come all on its own. I mean, you should doubt things if it's obvious that you're being told lies. If it's obvious that you've been duped into believing certain things, especially things passed off by religious people or organizations that wish to control you, govern your mentality, as it were. Yeah? All right. We know this goes on all the time, whether it's for marketing, politics, yeah, business, the military-industrial complex, which we'll come to later on, we'll talk about, yeah. These are all things in reality that lead you to doubt whether the things we've been told are true, especially when it comes to things like the moon landings, yeah, and the distance they say the sun is away, or what gravity is supposed to be. Yeah, I mean, if they can't come up with a sound, measurable definition for gravity, then we're all free to doubt it, aren't we? We're all free to question it. Yeah. So if you ask Neil deGrasse Tyson, or you ask Brian Cox what gravity is, they can't give you a straight answer. Yeah. Or dark matter, for that instance. Yeah. All right.
Today we're diving into their toolkit. Not the science, we've done that before, but their rhetorical.
No, you've never done any science, Dan. All you've repeated are the scientific explanations, so-called, the excuses. All you've done is sat there and take pieces of other videos and misrepresented people, and claimed that you're defending science. So, yeah. Tony Dixon, what Dan needs to realize is science is a method, not a religion. No beliefs are required. Yeah, exactly, Tony, and that's what this comes down to, doesn't it? It comes down to eradicating beliefs, yeah? So you understand that any kind of cosmological model can become a belief, but we can't prove it. And if we can't prove it, and we can't measure it, and we can't scientifically demonstrate it, then it remains a belief. And that's all. You know, if you could, yeah, you're absolutely right, Tony. If you can just, anyone can get to that stage of acceptance, that's enough. Doesn't mean you have to become a flat earther, but you naturally do, because then you see reality for what it is, without your ideas and your vision being clouded by these pseudo-scientific explanations. Earthship Bear, you only need to know one thing, Nick, the true direction of the force motion vector. No, not at all. There's plenty of other things we can try to know and explore and think about. I'm not going to get stuck in a rut just wondering whether I can prove the Earth is moving up. Yeah. So, yeah, you could do the same too. All right, let's go back to Mr. Sci-Boy.
Toolkit. This is 5 tricks that flat earthers use to fool you, how they work, and why they seem so convincing if you're not ready for them.
Dun dun dun! We're probably going to get some ads, but
Hello all and welcome along to another video with me, SciManDan. Thank you very much for joining me. Right, on with today's video and 5 tricks that flat earthers use to fool you. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There are a lot of tricks that flat earthers employ, but these are the
but no, of course, I've got to stop him there. There are no tricks, or the only thing we do is say, look at reality, measure reality, and make up your own mind. There's no tricks there. There's no tricks involved there. We don't have to make up things about the horizon. Don't have to try and convince you that we can, you know, see too far, because we can. Yeah. Unsalted 667, hello. He mentioned me once in a video and showed a meme I made about it. Yeah, well, you know, it's like all of these guys. They've got to constantly come up with material, because that's their gig, isn't it? Yeah. Well, and that's all they can do. All they can do is, you know, take, steal, doctor material that other people have made the effort to put out there, twist it around, chop it up, and cast aspersions. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just the way it is. In fact, I think one of Dan's first videos was aimed at me, and yeah, that's the only way they've made a name for themselves, is by just talking crap about flat earthers, telling them that they should just look at reality. Yeah. All right then.
5 which I think they use most often. And we start with number 1, the perspective trick. This one comes up whenever you ask a flat earther, why do ships disappear bottom first over the horizon, or why are the bottom of those buildings blocked by the horizon? Immediately the word perspective comes out of a flat earther's mouth. Now of course they are partly right. Perspective does make distant objects appear smaller. It's why street lamps appear to shrink as they line the road. But here's the thing, perspective shrinks everything evenly.
All right, I'll stop him there before he gets too carried away, because there's a lot to say about perspective. Yeah, well, you know, at least he's, you know, over the past 10 years, they've had to admit that perspective is a thing, and that perspective does cause things to change in angular size. But that's exactly where the blocking comes in. Yeah. Anyone who studies horizons will understand that they do work on a flat earth, and that's exactly what we expect to see, especially when we go down to a low level. I've got some videos that I'll bring up that I did myself so we can see this. But first of all, there's this claim that ships always disappear from the bottom up. That's not always true. It really does depend on the conditions. This is, of course, a prerequisite. It's a requirement for the globe that ships hit the horizon and then go down this imaginary curve. They have to in their model. So, of course, they'll make the claim that all ships disappear from the bottom up as they go off into the distance. Well, it's partly true, but again, it depends on conditions. Now, what I was going to do on the board here, but it's not the camera. This camera's not so good. So when it comes to angular size, and again, he's right that everything that we see does change in angular size, but not necessarily evenly, because what we see when we're at a low level is compression. So although mathematically they might describe perspective as something that is uniform and kind of tapers down into this point, which is what the horizon is anyway, and that's always at our eye level. But the thing is, we see compression. We don't see it in the sky because the sky is transparent, yeah? But we see compression across the surface, first of all because we are close to it, and second of all because the surface does actually create a physical block, and no surface in the outside world is completely smooth unless you've actually you know, made it very, very smooth. But most of the time, especially over water, when we're talking about ships disappearing from the hull up, is that they are on water with waves. Yeah, and there are thousands and thousands of waves between you and the object that appears to be disappearing from bottom up. Now, if you're on the shore and you're looking out to sea a few miles, then you know what happens if you've ever experienced that, is if you go away from the shore, those waves are going to get bigger and bigger, okay? But of course, the waves there between you and the boat are much closer to you. So if you are at a low level, then yes, the waves, even if they're a meter high, or sometimes, you know, that's very small for a wave that's out past the shoreline. A meter, 2 meters high is normal, regular conditions. Yeah, it's you know, that's always happening, right? That will, on all those thousands of other waves between you and the boat, will block off the bottom. And that happens on a road surface or any outdoor surface. We've all seen these videos where people walk away from a camera that's on the ground and their feet disappear or the wheels of a car disappear. And we know the ground is level, so we can actually demonstrate this happening across a level surface. So the bottom disappearing on a ship that's way off in the distance is a phenomena that we will always observe, especially with the choppy water and all the elements on the surface and above the surface, the vapor, the dust, the fluctuations in temperature. And remember that light that we see is like an electromagnetic spectrum. We're supposed to be seeing waves of light. So we know that light traveling across or above the surface is going to get distorted. So actually, you know, what you can observe is a ship going off into the horizon. The bottom might disappear a bit, but it doesn't always sink all the way down. This is a trick that the globe earthers use. They'll use a low perspective image of a ship far away, and it appears to be cut off, and they'll say, "See, that's curvature." That's one of their tricks, yeah. But we're going to see how easy it is to debunk that just by looking at reality. So yeah, in fact, let's do that now. Flat Earth, Earthship Bear, whatever. I'm not going to bother arguing at the moment. I got plenty of other stuff I want to talk about that's far more important, in my opinion, humble opinion. So let's go to, all right then. I got a bunch here. So yeah, let's go with this one. Hello. All right, let's just check if you can see that. Okay, so this is one I did years ago. This is 8 years ago. Oh my goodness. So I'm actually, you'll see here, this is a very flat, level playground. Okay, it's very smooth as well. It's you know, it's got this kind of waterproof tarmac on it, or whatever you call it. It's painted, so it's really quite smooth. So the camera's on the ground there, and you can see that there's a lot of distortion. I've got this, what appears to be a horizon on the surface, but then we get this mirroring, and then the eye level is up here, this yellow line. Okay, so there's distortion across this flat playground, and you'll see what I did here was I put a lighter on the ground, and I also put a tin on the ground. Okay, we can see just how distorted that all gets, and you can see that the lighter is being reflected, and there's a tin that I put on the ground as well. Let's just see if there's okay, so here's a shot where I'm putting this tin down, and you can see that it's distorted, and it's only a few meters away. Yeah, and then oops, when I drop it, I don't know if you'll see that again. All right, so I don't know if you can see that, but basically I dropped the tin. It was just like a tin like this. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm putting that on the ground, and you can see that it's disappeared. Yeah. So this is happening across a flat surface. All right. This is, you know, so there is a demonstration of what we expect to see across a level surface. We've got yes, of course, we've got heat, we've got distortion, but you don't always have the heat. Yeah. but you can still see this distortion. This is just what happens above the surface. All right. So you can now. Oh bloody hell! Sorry. You can see here, like, you know, the kids are running around, and there looks like this drop. Okay, this is just a flat surface, but the distortion, the diffraction, gives this apparent drop. And then, you know, we can see this happening with the ship, the same thing. We've got this mirroring on the surface. So this is what happens: is you get a horizon on the surface where you stop seeing things and you start seeing mirroring, but the surface is still actually carrying on. But this is what actually blocks the ships off as they go off into the distance. You can see there, you know, there's mirroring, there's distortion, and you can see this line here, this kind of artificial fake horizon. It's just the limit of where we can see the waves and on the surface, and beyond that it just becomes mirrored. Okay, so that's one of those. And of course there are loads and loads of videos talking about this, but this is another one I wanted to look into here, where we have you see these images of ships appearing to float on the water. Yeah. Okay. That's, and they give all the, it's funny because these guys in these YouTube channels, they give all these explanations about refraction and things like that, but actually all it is that you can see here, let me just stop that. You can see there on that one with the small sailboat that it's still just visible. It's on the water, but the thing is, there's a limit to where we see the kind of roughness on the surface, and then beyond that, it's obviously very calm, but it's also the same color as the sky. It's basically reflecting the sky. So the surface of the water is reflecting the sky, so you don't see this clearly defined horizon, which is still either where the boat is or beyond the boat. It's just that this is how it looks at this height. Yeah, so there's no there's no real refraction going on, and you don't have to think that, you know, in some of these channels they say, you know, the boat has gone beyond the horizon, but it's being lifted up by some Fatima Morgana or whatever. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so they just make this stuff up, this pseudoscience, right? Okay, so I've covered this before. This is a good one that we should cover in a minute, but basically, because if we just see this guy, let's just bring this up, okay? Just a sec, bear with me. So in this one, I'll just make sure you can see it. So in this one, obviously the guy's got a container and he's put some heavy gas into the container, and this tin foil boat or tray floats on the gas. All right, so this is one thing we need to keep in mind for later on when we talk about gravity and containers and things like that, and pressure systems and the layers of density that the gas has. You know, the flat Earth, real Earth, could be contained like this. You don't necessarily have to have a lid on us. We don't have to have a firmament. We could be just contained in a kind of fish tank vivarium style arrangement here, where we have walls all around us, and that would be enough to contain the gases and the water and everything, and we'd have these layers of density, and we'd have this pressure gradient that is more dense on the bottom and less dense as we go up, but then outside of that, who knows what's actually going on. It doesn't have to be a vacuum, because that's just a prerequisite for the globe model. Yeah, so I can see a few more people coming in the chat. Let's just say hi. Squirrel Sniper, hello. David, hello, mate. Thank you for coming in. Oh, let me just go back so I don't miss these. Wow. Okay, great. Left Kung Fu, hello there. Leighton Stones, shout out to all the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord crew. Hopefully Nick can... Oh, thank you, Leighton. Yes, I would love to. I love those guys there. They're doing such a fantastic job. And they are really they're really helping. And I just love the way they handle. Sometimes I do want to jump in because, you know, I'd like to say it in a certain way. Because you can hear how sometimes, you know, the arguments, or there's crosstalk where... There's a glober that's come in, and you're trying to get a point across, but it kind of quickly gets scattered and blown out of, you know, away from the main focal point. Sometimes that's nobody's fault. It's just the way it happens because people keep kind of, and these guys come in and gish gallop anyway. But good. Hi, Indy. All right. Yeah, Squirrel Sniper. Hi. Greetings to you too. Yeah, we're under the same skies. Jack streaming. Ice. What's that? Ice. How do you say that? I can. Digita. Good logic on the waves, etc., giving the illusion of bottoms down. Okay, thank you. Good. Yeah, it's like it's a pain to explain that, isn't it? But it makes sense, right? I mean, we're given these orthographic views to imagine certain scenarios where that's the thing. You've got to understand that whatever's close to you is going to appear larger, even if it's smaller than the distant object, because, you know, a ship 4 miles away is going to appear very tiny compared to a 1 meter or 2 meter wave half a mile away from you, right? That's going to block it off. It's just common sense, yeah? Right, let's go back to see. Sorry, I just want to make sure I say hi. Ron Walker, hello there. Sven P, hello. What's that? Donald Piasek. Only globers can go into space because they have flipped their lids. Okay, I can digitable, whatever that is, or digibabe, I can't. You need to go for Vino now. Okay, yeah, please do come back later. Chris Hayes, hello there. All right then. Okay. Hopefully I've caught up. Right. Cool. Yeah. Let's carry on. So, yeah, I'm gonna kind of. Let's just. What else did I have lined up in that respect? Yeah. So many videos about horizons. Yeah. So, one other one I did. Where is it? Okay. Sorry, bear with me. Oh yeah, this. Okay, so I did take that video, but what's Oh, sorry about the ads. I'm really sorry. Right,
Hello,
I think
Flat Earth researchers, debaters, and debunkers.
this was one
popped over to
done.
see this video by Nathan Oakley.
Yeah, this was done by Nathan Oakley.
Demonstrating our perspective anywhere. It's great. Real science in action.
Basically, what Nathan's doing here is showing that you lower the camera,
disappears,
and he's made a book in the distance disappear.
In the comments section, you've got people arguing about the unevenness of the floor, etc. Forgetting that, of course, outdoors we never get completely smooth surfaces. But here, this is just a great example of how much something can be cut off at a short distance over a very level, perhaps slightly uneven floor. But that's what happens with perspective. Anyway, the comment.
All right, so yeah, I think that can kind of, you know, that would make sense there, right? So yeah, we've got all these assumptions about horizons and things like that, which are totally false because horizons do not dictate that we live on a globe in any way whatsoever. So we'll probably come to that later on, but now I've kind of even lost my place where we were. So this is the first one, yeah? Dan's still on the first one where he's talking about ships getting blocked off. So, okay, yeah, let's just be clear about that. We do expect to see distant objects get cut off from the bottom up. And actually, when you see a ship getting cut off from the bottom up, or a car on the road, I've shown these many times, or a cyclist on a road, we've all seen this, and you, Dan, you could go out with a video camera and film this for yourself, yeah? And again, this drop, this apparent drop that we see is, again, something that happens because of diffraction. And it is a natural occurrence that when we look across a flat surface, when we're at a low level, the horizon there is a line that is the horizon on the surface that gives us this kind of sharp edge, okay, and that does extend, okay, as you gain height. This is exactly what we see, yeah, again, the compression is an important thing to remember. So, you know, as you look across a greater distance, then the further that distance is, the more and more compressed actual space gets into a smaller visual space. Do you see what I mean? And this is why you cannot triangulate or use trigonometry to actually determine the height of stars, because although you could measure the height of a building or a tree or possibly a mountain, I think it would be difficult to actually properly measure a mountain with trigonometry. It's going to be some guesswork. But trees and buildings, you know, you get that 45-degree angle, and you know that the distance you've gone across the floor and the 45-degree angle gives you the same height as the floor, right? This is simple trig. But again, the fact that the further we see, the more compressed things become, means that unlike a building that you can measure to 45 degrees, a star, whether it's hundreds or thousands of miles away, the height that we have to see to that star is going to get more and more and more and more compressed. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. So, you know, when you look up at a building, you look up, if you're under a tall building and you look up, then of course the lower floors you can see quite clearly. There's a big, but if it's a uniform space between the windows and the floors on the building, they will appear to get more and more and more squished together as you look up. So that you've got to remember that the same thing is happening when you look through the transparent sky to a star, because it's so high up. You know, you've gone past a point that you don't, where there's just compression. It's just everything. The further you go, the more and more compressed it is. So it's not uniform. Yeah. So that's something that Dan said. It's you know, perspective is a uniform thing. It's not. It's certainly not. Yeah. So all right, let's carry on.
Ship wouldn't disappear bottom first. It would just get smaller as a whole.
So again, they do, as we just explained, but they also can just get smaller, or they can just fade away. I was looking for it, I couldn't find it, but there's one called, it's like a red ship, a red container ship that someone just filmed from the shore, maybe a little bit high up, and they watched this ship go off into the distance, but the bottom didn't disappear. It didn't disappear from down up, from the bottom up. It just gradually faded and just became part of the horizon. And again, this is just what we'd expect to see, because we understand that at the horizon, it's convergence. It's just everything blended in, and that's why it just swallows up all the color. It's almost like a black hole, right? That just because you can't see the color, you can't see a clear picture. The information that is traveling with the light is being scattered and distorted, so you don't see a clear picture anymore. Again, this is common sense. This is science. This is the science of electromagnetic waves, of which light is, apparently, according to mainstream science, right? It can be a wave, it can be a particle. Again, you know, there's still, light is still a mystery. Yeah. But what is obvious is that light gets distorted. Yeah. If you just look at reality.
But when a ship does disappear behind the horizon, what do we see? The bottom goes first. You can zoom in, sure, and get a bit more detail, but what you never recover is the part already occluded by the curve.
Okay, so this is one of those globe Earth tricks, right? You've got a very low level shot, right? So that ship is very far away, and just as we've seen with the lighter or the tin box on the playground, like maybe 20 meters away when you got the camera on the floor, or the videos I've done years ago and so many other people have done where you're close to the ground and you can see the distortion in the distance at the horizon, this convergence, yeah, then you do see things appear to get cut off. And this is the illusion of a drop. And of course, you know, what about all the curvature that's supposed to be between you and the ship? They never think of that. They're just looking at this horizon as an edge. Yeah, even the flat earther isn't saying that the horizon is an edge, are they? Yeah. So this is their trick. And so this is where we have to come back to, because when you look at a shot like that, you can create it. That's the actual globe Earth trick to say, oh, look, ships disappear at the horizon. But we know that actually if you gain height, the horizon rises with you. The horizon is your eye level. It's nothing to do with the shape of the Earth, actually. Hi, Justin. The horizon is your eye level. And of course, the horizon, as you rise, will rise above the ship. Okay, so this immediately debunks the globe. Yeah, because if you're saying that this is curvature at this horizon, then if you rise up, that horizon should stay right there. It shouldn't move subjectively just because you moved. The whole Earth isn't going to change shape just for you, is it? Yeah, but no, it's your personal subjective perspective. So let me just quickly go back to, what am I looking at? I think, okay, just bear with me. I'm going to show you just that, whoa, come on, let's go. It's a shorts. I mean, so many Horizon videos, but this one, okay, let's look at this one. All right. And so this is just drone footage that I found, not by globers or flat earthers, just drone, and you can see for yourself. And a lot of these globers have their own drones. They could do this, and you can see that the horizon sticks at your eye level, and it shows you where you are in relation to everything else that's around you. Yeah, that's what horizons do, because it's an optical effect created in our eyes. Let's just watch that again. All right. Yeah. There's our eye level, and it's just, we're going up, and you can see that it tells us. The horizon actually tells us. So yes, this is an illusion. Yeah, but it's an illusion of what we know, how a level surface appears to us, just like a corridor. Yeah, this is, flat Earth 101. Yeah, but of course the globers have to completely deny this. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. So this is debunked by watching a horizon rise up. Okay, and this is a globe earther trick to say, oh look, that's curvature. Yeah, and we can make the same thing happen across a level surface.
And here is the trick. Flat earthers know this, but by yelling perspective loud enough, they plant a seed of doubt. And they will of course say that zooming into a ship on the horizon will always bring it back into view.
No, that is false as well. This is just one thing that you can do, is that you might be looking out on the horizon and think that you see a horizon and that there's nothing, you can't see anything beyond the horizon because it's a globe. because it's curvature. But then when you zoom in, you actually, if there are ships that are within visible range with a telescope or something, then yeah, you'll actually end up being able to see it where you couldn't see it with your naked eye or when you were zoomed out. But no, if something's blocked off, if something has disappeared beyond the horizon, there's no claim that you can magically bring things back by zooming in on them. It's only if they are still within visible range. So this is another trick that the globers use to obfuscate and confuse people by taking this. And it's funny because Dan, keep this in mind, because Dan later on is going to complain about flat earthers taking bits of quotes. Yeah. So what he's done here is already done that. He's taken one particular thing that you can observe but is not always true, and said that this is what flat earthers claim always. Remember, he used the word always just then. So he's just using this blanket claim. He's cherry picking, and he's going to talk about that later on, ironically. But what he's done there is cherry picked something that I think Eric Dubay said in one of his early videos, that you can often zoom in on things that you can't see with the naked eye, and you thought had gone beyond the horizon, but you can zoom in on them. But there's still going to be a point, even if you can zoom in on some small boat, it is going to eventually get swallowed up by the horizon, whether the waves in front of you are bigger than it and it becomes so small in angular size you can't see it, or the weather or mist or fog or clouds on the surface and the water vapor and all the distortion just kind of makes it disappear. Again, if you look hard enough, you'll find the footage. If you're too lazy to go and take the footage yourself, you'll find it. And every single horizon is different, because it does depend on all the other factors that, of course, these people won't take into consideration. And the main thing they're not taking into account is the fact that we see the world through eyes, and perspective governs all our observations. So yes, finally, after all these years, Dan had to grudgingly admit that perspective's a thing, but then had to dictate a way that perspective works, which is not, again, just a partial truth. Yeah. Yeah, there wouldn't be a horizon if you weren't using your eyes. Yeah. But again, because we're talking about light and perspective and the way things get distorted, that the same thing happens with radio waves and radar signals and microwaves for communication. If you send them across water, yeah, or even you're trying to get them to a point that's very far away, even a laser will spread out and become dispersed and distorted. So there is always going to be a limit to how far you can send information in the form of light or any kind of electromagnetic wave. Yeah. And of course, so infrared we can see a bit further because we're looking through a particular spectrum there. So okay, but there's still a limit. There is still a limit. Just because you have infrared, despite the Earth being flat and level, it doesn't mean that you can see another country, even if you have the most powerful telescope, or even if you have an infrared lens. There's still a limit. Yeah. And of course, this is something that the glober will counteract with, well, I can see stars millions and millions and trillions of miles away. Yeah. But they've jumped into this belief, an assumption that they're seeing stars all that distance away. Yeah.
They rely on you not looking further into it.
No, that's again, this is we all say, look into it at your leisure. Test the globe, test the Earth, test reality, look at horizons, really look at it. Yeah, the flat earther is the only person that's going to say, go and test it for yourself. A glober is going to tell you some pseudo-scientific explanation, and say, well, don't look into it, don't think about it. Yeah. Their whole mission is to stop you thinking about it just by coming up with an explanation. Yeah. Oh, no, don't look into it. Yeah. So you're projecting there, Dan. You're projecting. All right. Why not? Hello. I'm happy to see that you're alive, so I can tell you how you're doing a good job. Thank you very much. Thank you. I can't spend a lot of time on YouTube today, so I'll be watching this one next week. Thank you thank you very much. Why not? I like the way you've done that. I appreciate the comment there, and I hope you do get to tune in later on. But obviously, understandable. You've got things to do. Divergent Droid. Hello. All right. Okay. Alrighty. So yeah, we're only 2 minutes in. It's a 9-minute video, so bear with me.
But then when you do, you can see a consistent pattern. Only a curved surface explains a bottom first disappearance.
No, Dan. No, you're wrong, you see. It's not, again, this is that bigoted approach. Only a curved surface would do that. And as we've shown many times, yeah, no, this would happen on a level surface, a rugged level surface, or even a smooth surface. It would just take a little longer for it to disappear, but it will happen. And this has been shown over and over again. In fact, the first videos I did were all about the horizons, yeah. I mean, there's so many there. Yeah, this one, yeah, there's this fjord. I love this picture of a fjord where you can see this distortion. So that's a good example. I don't know if this will come up straight away. Let's see. Yeah. But this fjord is a great, because this is cold weather, okay? So let me see if that makes a difference if I do it wide like that. Okay, yeah. Can you see here we've got this apparent horizon on the surface, yeah? This is that kind of cut-off line. But then we've got this mirroring. But so the surface is actually extended, but we're getting this mirroring. So this is in a cold environment. It's in Norway, I think. Yeah, so it's cold. Yeah, Norwegian fjord mirage. Okay, so we've got this horizon that's, you know, the actual convergence is above that horizon line that we see on the surface. So again, all you got to do is look, actually look. And these guys have got good cameras, they've got drones and all sorts, you know. Someone like Dave McKeegan could go and look at this and test it for himself. And you'll eventually see, you know, you'll hear this argument, oh, but when you're low down, you get a sharp horizon, but then you get higher, the horizon gets blurry. Well, yeah, because what you see on a low level is this cutoff on the surface, beyond which you can't see any more detail. We're just too low. It's all too compressed in our vision. We cannot make it out. It becomes distorted. So, you know, beyond this hard horizon line on the surface here, you know, you've got thousands and thousands of other little waves, but that information is not coming through to our eyes because of all the information that's in front. This is the compression and the mirroring that we see on a level surface. Yeah, so if there was a boat here, it would appear cut off, and you'd say, oh, that's gone down curvature on a fjord. Yeah, so it's just ridiculous. So no, Dan says this can only happen on a globe. That's an outright lie. You just got to look at reality, and it happens across a level, rugged, outdoor surface, or even an indoor surface. We can see the same thing happening. Any truth seeker, anyone actually trying to prove the globe, will find this out for themselves, that arguing about horizons is going to get you nowhere. It's a moot point, because horizons actually occur as we would expect them on a level surface. You just have to understand that horizons are not an edge of curvature. And that's not in defense of the flat earth. It's just to say that that's reality. But the glober has to cling on to that. They have to say that the only possible explanation for seeing the bottom of a ship disappear or get distorted or mirrored like this, you can see it happening. The same thing as with the fjord just now. Yeah, that there's a cut-off point. It's just, you just look at reality. Just look at reality. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. I think we've kind of covered that. Yeah. So it is perspective. Yeah. There's other videos I could show you, but you know, we don't need them. Let me just quickly catch up with the chat. Just make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, thank you very much, Divergent. Yeah. For encouraging people to like and subscribe. Sven, Dan is a liar. I've told him so 1,000 times on Instagram where he posts his absolute bullshit. Yeah, but again, I mean, it's always, you know, don't let it get to you, right? Because it's funny listening to just a snippet. I couldn't take myself through the whole thing. No, I think it was what was it? Who was it? Who was covering it? Someone else was covering. SciManDan's chat with with Jaren, and you know what, I think SciManDan's last question to Jaren was, did it annoy you when I made that I won't debate flat earthers? And Jaren's like, yeah, it did a bit. I just find it funny. It's not annoying. It just shows the cowardice. Yeah, that's just such a cowardice move. If you're gonna, like, you know, as I said, some of Dan's early videos were like directly targeting me, and some of my videos, chopping my videos up and misinterpreting me. Yeah, but you ask him if he's to have a chat about it, to debate it. No way. He says, "Oh, I don't debate flat earthers." Yeah, that's just cowardice. That's like a child, you know, putting shit through someone's letterbox and then running away. You know, that's just something you might do or might see when you're a kid, but you grow out of it when you realise it's just pathetic, really. Or at least, you know, you get caught and you get made to realise, you know, how cowardly that is. Yeah, because you're just creating something where you can't defend yourself, so you run away. Yeah. Sorry, I can't read all the comments, but what's that, Andrew? The fact that there's no detectable downward acceleration towards the Earth destroys the globe and your stationary Earth. You talk about doing tests. You can't comprehend simple practical demonstrations. Andrew, is that directed at me? Yeah, and this whole thing, this accusation about acceleration down towards Earth. I mean, things, I wouldn't say that things necessarily constantly accelerate. They have a terminal velocity, yeah, so they reach a constant speed. So the thing is, if you're saying that stationary flat earthers make a claim that there's acceleration towards the Earth, that's not true, because things appear to travel at a constant speed once they've accelerated. I mean, it's a bit of both, right? There's acceleration because that's going from not moving to moving. Yeah. So this is not. That's you know, you've obfuscated and made up a claim that people don't claim, right? I mean, whatever the globe, you know, yes, we understand that the globers talk about, or you know, weight as being acceleration, yeah, but and some of them might claim that things continue to accelerate, but that's just it's just a mathematical assumption. In reality, when we drop something, it reaches a terminal velocity. And you can argue about air pressure and resistance, and even in a vacuum, yeah, no one's actually measured something dropping forever or for miles and miles to see if it actually carries on accelerating in a vacuum. All right. So you've made an argument there based on a false claim about what so-called stationary flat earthers say, yeah, and lumping them in with globers. Yeah, good point, Indy. David Banner, thank you very much for your £5 donation there. Thank you. Great stuff, Nick. Thank you very much, David. That's very kind of you. Much appreciated. Yeah. It does take a while for these chats to add up, and I might eventually get it in about 3 months or something. But either way, it's always very welcome. There's a lot going on, so thank you. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to argue about that. I'm not here to argue about whether the Earth is moving up or not. Yeah. I'm here to kind of debunk SciManDan. Right then.
The perspective trick is all a smokescreen.
No, there's no trick, except that perspective is understood, and the glober has to deny it, and yeah, they'll create all sorts of smoke screens like refraction and this and that, mirages, and basically make up shit about horizons. Yeah.
Right, moving on to number 2 then. Cherry-picked quotes. This one is almost charming in its effort. Flat earthers love quoting famous scientists, usually out of context to make it seem like someone like Einstein, for example, has doubts over Earth's motion. Since then, I have come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment. Sounds damning, right? But here is the full quote. Since then, I have come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment, though the Earth is revolving around the Sun. What he meant by this quote is that motion is relative. You can't say something is moving unless you define a reference point. That's Physics 101.
Yes, Dan. Okay, Physics 101. All right, so as far as Einstein's concerned, he came up with relativity, and it's basically a way to actually say that you can look at these things however you want. Now, this is one thing that you realize when you start looking into the cosmological models that we've been given, or the one cosmological model that we've been given, is that we are told that various things, we're told the sun is stationary and the Earth is moving. The moon is moving in some weird way as well, yeah, but the stars are moving, but they don't appear to be moving. Yeah. Okay, but this is interesting, yeah, because as I said earlier on, Dan is accusing the flat earthers of cherry picking. Well, that's all Dan has done. That's how he makes a living on YouTube, is he cherry picks things that flat earthers say, twists them around, and misinterprets them. He's the king of cherry picking. So the irony here is quite funny. So we could just go and have a look at what some of the other things that Einstein said, and there's so many. Yeah, I'm not, and it's like, where did that quote really come from? But in a way, he's correct, because you have to choose a reference point, and whichever one you choose, you can choose. This is the thing: you can choose whether one is stationary or moving, and you can then build your model around that. Yeah. But what happened with the heliocentric model is they decided to choose that the sun is not moving and the Earth is moving. But when we look up at the sun and the moon and the stars, we can actually play with a lot of different ideas. And we could say, well, the sun and the moon are moving, the Earth is stationary, and the stars are all moving together. Yeah? And I can't actually go and prove that's happening just as a globe earther can't prove that the sun is relatively stationary and the earth is moving. Yeah, but you know, someone like SciManDan will say that's the only way we can imagine it. That's the only way to perceive it. And science says that's false. That's totally false. And you know, if you actually go with what Einstein is saying, is that actually you could determine it from any point, and you could decide that you're on the moon or the sun or somewhere else in space, and it's all relative anyway. Yeah. But essentially, what we're on is an Earth where we can, like your upward rising guys here. Yes, you see, this is the thing. This is why I don't really want to argue with you about it, because it's like, well, yeah, you can assume that if you want, just like the glober can assume that the Earth is spinning and moving and orbiting around the sun, but we can't feel it. Yeah, because of this or because of that. We can all come up with these external explanations, but what can any of us prove? So as I said many times, you are welcome to assume that the Earth is moving up. Doesn't bother me, but you can't come along to me like a glober comes along and says this is the only way that you can see it, because you know, you push something or a force makes something move. Yeah, we don't know what other forces are involved. Yeah, because we are not privy to creation. Yeah, and so yeah. But one quote I do like about Einstein, that Einstein says, I like this one: the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. Yeah, so you know, you've got all these globers who think they're intelligent, but they're refusing to change, and they're refusing to even take on board, you know, Einstein's point about relativity, is that, you know, you could be in one place, the whole moving trains thing, yeah? It either is or it isn't moving, but if you see one passing you, which one's moving? Well, the only way you can know is if you somehow knew or found out or measured that you are moving in the first place. And when you're sitting on a train, you know if you're moving along because you've been on there since it started moving. So you went from stationary and it started moving and there was some acceleration, but then you got up to regular speed, and you know that your train is the one that's moving. And if you go past a train going in the opposite direction or stationary, yeah, well, you know, it's just going to be going past your window. But if you suddenly appear on the train that either is in constant motion or is stationary, right, you can't tell the difference. And you don't know, if you don't know whether your train has started or not, you know, this is just simple stuff. Again, it just ends up being arguments around thought experiments, yeah? Because no one ever proved what's moving in the first place. Right? So again, it's just this bigoted thing. Yeah. So I can accept that there are a million ways we can look at it and perceive it. But what can we prove? Yeah? What can we actually prove? Yeah. So, yeah, again, you know, saying that people cherry pick comment things is, well, yeah, sometimes, you know, a quotation is good. You know, you can't convince someone that they've been fooled. Yeah. There are so many that you could apply to either scenario. But ultimately, when it comes to Einstein, you know, he was commissioned to come up with certain things, yeah, and ultimately he comes up with relativity, yeah. Meaning what? Meaning nothing in particular, really, that we can actually prove, yeah.
But flat earthers take the first half of that quote and then chuck the rest in the bin. It's like quoting someone saying, "I don't believe," and then just stopping there, when the full sentence is, "I don't believe the earth is flat." Now this is called quote mining. You look
Quote mining, yeah. Okay, but there he is, you know, just he's not refuting it with a he's just using an analogy. Again, this is all the globe earthers have. Analogies. They can never come up with any actual scientific measurements. They just come up with analogies all the time. Yeah.
Look for something vague, clip it, and then pretend it means something else entirely. And on the surface, it does sound authoritative, but it's dishonest. And when someone builds their entire argument on half quotes, it tells you everything you need to know.
Exactly, Dan. And as I said, that's all you've done. Taken people's quotes and twisted them. So you're entirely guilty of building arguments on half quotes. That's for sure. All right. So just a point about the, you know, the whole thing about the train. Maybe this is going to come up later, but, you know, a moving train is going in constant motion, but that's the analogy often used. In fact, I think he does. Hang on.
That moves us nicely on to number 3, sciencey sounding gibberish. This is a techno-babble trick, and this is a flat earther using it.
As I say, second law of thermodynamics is the entropy law. If you have an available volume for a gas to fill, then the gas will fill it. That's what gas does. It expands in all directions to fill the available volume. As I say, it's called entropy. It's a natural law, not a belief. How can you have gas pressure without a container? We'd need a demonstration of that, as it's asserted that the Earth is a pressurised system without any containment, and that violates natural law by demonstration. Easy to demonstrate, it's natural law. It applies always.
Now, as you can see, they throw around real science terms, like thermodynamics, entropy, angular resolution, but they use them like confetti, with no understanding.
Again, I think, to be honest, what it is that actually it's beyond Dan. I think he says it like that because he can't understand it. But now the example he showed just now is actually a really good example of how Nathan Oakley, Flat Earth Debate, have spent months and months and months refining and exploring each little kind of pseudoscience excuse or explanation that the globers give. Yeah, and then actually looking at reality, real science, and then really boiling it down. So when, for example, Nathan Oakley says, yeah, they hijacked perspective, he's actually right, but there's a whole bunch of stuff behind that comes into that very succinct summary of what the globe is. And it's true, because they've taken the geometry of perspective or used geometry to describe perspective and turned that into an imaginary curve. Yeah. And so, yeah, when Nathan Oakley there was talking about, you know, entropy and the laws of thermodynamics, if you actually apply these to reality, which we see and can demonstrate, they do not fit with the globe earth belief and the gravity and the atmosphere in a vacuum and all that stuff. Yeah. As we showed with the fish tank thing and what have you. Yeah. This is the thing. It's because we've dived down deep and done the research and really tried to get clarity rather than confusion, rather than obfuscation, rather than just hand-waving dismissal, which is what the globers actually do when you point out the contradictions in their arguments, because they'll make a compartmentalized argument, say, you know, it's a globe because of this, but then you point out something else that's actually a scientific fact that doesn't fit with this assumptions, such as the atmosphere sticking to the outside of a spinning globe in a vacuous space. Yeah, these are just nonsensical conclusions that contradict each other. Yeah, so this is the thing. Obviously, with someone like SciManDan, who refuses to put in the thought and refuses to put in any kind of effort to actually prove his point with any science, then yeah, when someone says something succinctly like Nathan did there, it just goes over the top of his head, cannot handle it, hasn't actually thought about it. Yeah, hence he just kind of can't just can't get it. And this is why he ends up appearing to be thick, yeah, even though he's pretending to be smart. And of course, this is the problem with the globers, because everything about the globe is all to do with indirect, indirect evidence, deductive reasoning. There are no direct measurements. They're all assumptions, and based on picking a particular reference point that you never proved was moving or stationary in the first place, right? So, yeah. Let me just quickly visit the chat. Brendan's in. Realm Walker, hello, Music Realm as well. Thomas Fe. Yeah, you see a circle around you and it's been hijacked into a ball. Yes. Okay. All right. I don't know who you're talking about, David. He wore women's sandals. Okay. Tony Dixon. Einstein made up relativity probably because he married a relative of his cousin. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, divergent droid. Droid. Gas is physical matter with mass. That does not obey the an idea of mass attracting mass, easily demonstrated. Yeah. I, the jolly man, to replace the missing Newtonian matter, Einstein created a mathematical concept of time and space. I know. Yeah, time and space, they bend. Again, it just shows the idiocy. And of course, so who's correct? Einstein? He seemed to be correct, and it seemed to work. He had a working model, but then Einstein came along. Because, yeah. So, yeah, you're right, David Banner. Dan is projecting again. Justin Johnson, hello. Mass doesn't attract mass. Yes, the positive claim is that it does. Absolutely. Yet I have yet to see any evidence of that. Again, yeah, this is a good point, Justin, because, the glober assumes he or she is smart because although it can't be proven, it can't be demonstrated, and it can't be measured, you can only perceive it. And so you have to have some kind of mental ability to imagine this abstract concept. So that's considered to be intelligent. So, yeah, you have to be smart to understand the globe. Yeah, but it's actually... While we're talking about this, do you remember that submarine disaster? There's a Netflix thing about this submarine. What was it called? The Titan or something? That this billionaire kind of made to go down and check out the Titanic, right? But the thing is that although this guy was smart and he could come up with these designs for submersibles and things like that, he was clever and he was smart, and but then he had a lot of money as well. His ego is what ultimately created the disaster. He held on to his idea, held on to this desire to be the first guy to do it. His main thing was they created a carbon fiber shell for the submarine, right? So he was on this mission to be the first guy to go that deep with a carbon fiber, lightweight. It was a business idea because it would be a lightweight sub, so the boats that were carrying the subs wouldn't need to be so large, so you could then make it cheaper. A kind of Elon Musk type thing. Let's make space travel cheaper, or let's make rockets cheaper. So this guy was trying to do the same. Let's make submarines cheaper, and he was selling the whole idea. So although he had this intelligence, he didn't have the wisdom and he didn't have the wherewithal to actually stop himself from basically, killing himself and other people, because he was overridden by his ego. Yeah, so this is what we see, and this is what Flat Earth is all about. It's about, getting rid of that attachment to the identity. And we know that people like SciManDan are just attached to this belief because it's comforting for them. They feel that they've got something that they kind of feel that they are smart because they were led to believe in the globe from all this evidence looking up in the sky, but no actual science, no actual direct measurements. It's all indirect. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, let's just scroll down. Okay. Constance B, life is worth celebrating. Definitely. Okay.
For example, let's take the second law of thermodynamics. They claim that it says Earth's atmosphere can't sit next to the vacuum of space. They say that it's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. But what they miss, of course, is that the Earth's atmosphere, the entire atmosphere, is held in place by Earth's gravity. That is the...
No one's missing that, Dan. That's your claim. That's your claim that cannot be demonstrated in reality. As we know, if there's a difference in pressure, we need a container, whether it's an aerosol can or a vacuum chamber or anything. Yeah, if there's a difference in pressure, then you need a container, right? And as I showed earlier with the fish tank thing, it's possible that we live in some kind of environment like that, where we have walls around us but not necessarily a lid on top of us. So you could still have your pressure gradient. You can still have your air and your gases going up and down. Yeah? Okay. But yeah, you know, he's had to assume gravity. So he's assumed a globe, and he's assumed that there's gravity to make you stick to the outside of the globe, which of course you have to do, because otherwise it doesn't fit with reality anyway. But again, just presupposing the model. Yeah. And it's not that nobody understands this, but what we're saying is, go ahead and prove it. Can you prove it? And the other thing with gravity is, even if you assume that gravity's a thing. So again, it's funny when people say, well, how does gravity work on a flat Earth? Well, it's just that you could assume it. You could assume gravity to be the same as the assumption that they have, that the mass of the Earth creates gravity and attracts things towards it. However that works, it doesn't change just because the Earth is a plane. Yeah, it's only because of their perception of gravity and the inverse square law. As you know, gravity goes out from the center of the Earth, which is weird anyway, because it just, either way, it's a mind trick. And the funny thing about gravity is, especially if you take the Newtonian gravity, is that it's supposed to be that the more mass something has, the greater the attraction to the Earth, right? And you know, whether that let's just say that's Newtonian gravity, right? And so of course gases, noble gases that are the ones that are even lighter than oxygen, helium, whatever, then they have no mass if you're going to consider them as molecules, which again is debatable. But a gas is very non-dense. It's very light. Yeah, so it's not going to be attracted by the assumed gravity of the Earth. So it will escape into the vacuum of space if you assume there's a vacuum. Again, the flat earther doesn't assume that there's a vacuum. We don't necessarily assume what is beyond the realm that we can experience, right? We don't know if there's a container or a lid or a dome or a firmament or just open space. And what is that open space? What is it really? We don't know. Nobody knows. But the vacuum is just an assumption that Galileo made with his marbles and friction, because they were talking about, there's again, it's extrapolation and a calculation. Well, okay, if the gas gets less dense, eventually it becomes a vacuum, and we need a vacuum in order for the planets to continually circulate. Yeah, so this is their explanation for the perpetual motion of the solar system. Yeah, they just assume a vacuum, but it's not proven and it can't be demonstrated anyway. So again, this is all the flat earther is pointing out, is that all these globe claims don't even stand up. So even if you assume gravity and you assume a vacuum of space, gravity will not hold on to gas, especially noble gases, against the the vacuum of space, right? It just doesn't work on any level. It can't even occur in the first place. Yeah. So yes, the globe and the heliocentric model has to ignore these laws of thermodynamics and entropy. Yeah. Yeah. And this is it. This is the contradictions that they refuse to acknowledge.
The force resisting diffusion into space. And then what about entropy? Yes, systems do trend towards disorder, but that doesn't mean your living room's going to explode.
What a ridiculous analogy. So entropy, yes, things eventually become disordered, but that doesn't mean your room's going to explode. I mean, what the heck kind of analogy is that? Again, a moot, asinine, inane analogy that is all he can manage, because he can't actually prove the point. He can't produce any actual bloody science. That's all they've got. Analogy man Dan. Oh dear, it's so funny. It is amusing. Yeah. All right, let's carry on.
Systems have constraints. Gravity is a constraint.
Gravity is a constraint. Well, yeah, it seems that if you listen to certain people, it is impossible to get off the Earth. Yeah, that's the thing. Who was it? Don Petit was actually done a thing, and I think who else was it? The old guy with the bow tie. Yeah. He's also said, you know, you got to understand that you can't get off Earth. You can't get into outer space. Yeah. So again, they're just relying on this imaginary construct. But yeah, we are limited, Dan. It's true, and that's something that the Glober finds hard to believe, because it's funny, because you know, when you become a flat earther, you realize that, oh shit, well, I am in this place that may or may not have boundaries, but either way, I'm kind of stuck with all these people around me. It's like being in a prison cell. Bill Nye, thank you, Constant Speed, Bill Nye. Yeah, he said it as well, hasn't he? Yeah, this is it. I don't need to bring up these videos. You all know these things, yeah? So yeah, there's a quote that have we taken that quote out of context, Dan? When Bill Nye tells us that we can't escape Earth, yeah? And then, you know, it's funny, because you'll end up, if you kind of try to drive home this point, or you try, and then someone will say eventually, oh, well, gravity just carries on forever. You're always going to be pulled back to the Earth, yeah? So, yeah, it's funny, it's comical. That's the thing, you know, talking with, you know, Mr. Cheswick sometimes, it's like, yeah, he's like, really, you know, Mr. Cheswick's like, I just laugh at them, because yeah, they're just making stuff up. It's just funny. It's just funny when you hear the Glober trying to kind of come up with these excuses. Listen, beyond belief, and all you guys going on and kind of creating arguments, you know, you say, what gives you directionality on a stationary Earth? Well, again, it's just like, oh, even if you assume that the Earth is rising up, I could just say, well, okay, what's making the Earth rise? You can't prove it. You can't do anything. We can't get out of this reference frame. And the whole, you know, again, we are free. We are free to imagine it any way we like. This is the whole point. Yeah. So you going around saying, oh, you're a stationary Earth, and you've got certain beliefs and this and that. That's, again, you're just acting like a globie. Yeah. What you need to do is get to that point where you can accept that there's a limit to what we can know. And if you're wise, then you can just say, well, okay, it could be this, it could be that, but I'm happy to wait around until there is some kind of proper proof. Yeah. So, you know, you're kind of behaving a bit like SciManDan, because you're making claims that people are making claims. And it's like, well, no, we're just looking at reality and saying, well, I can measure this, but I can't measure that.
So is energy input, temperature, and dozens of other factors. It's like arguing that your car shouldn't work because friction exists.
Again, another ridiculous analogy. It's like saying your car doesn't work because friction exists. You know, no, Dan, just, you know, if you're going to argue, prove your point with a measurement. And again, understand, you know, the difference between a measurement and a calculation. This is something where it's very clear. It's very, very clear that for anyone that's actually looking for the truth, is that there is a difference between measurements and calculations. Or you can use measurements and then you can extrapolate certain things and imagine certain things, like the direction of down or up or whatever, yeah? And you can't be proven right or wrong. So you just end up being pig-headed about it. And so again, go back to Einstein's quote, you know, the sign of intelligence is someone that can change. Yeah? I think even, you know, other philosophers of old have already have said something along similar lines. You know, you can hold these ideas. I can hold a rising Earth idea. I can hold a globe Earth idea. And I can hold a flat Earth idea. I can imagine a flat Earth as an ice ring. I can imagine an infinite flat Earth. I can imagine a million cosmological models. I can imagine, you know, you've got FPV's, you know, figure of 8 sun. Yeah? And all this. Yeah? It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah. But, you know, someone like FPV isn't, you know, saying, he's not saying exactly, you know, what's making these things in the sky do their things, you know. How does it work? How does the sun work? You know, it's only the glober demanding that you have these explanations. But they're not going to listen to you anyway. Yeah, but their explanations aren't founded on any science. They're just stories, pages in the story for the heliocentric Bible. Yeah.
Missing the part where there's other forces at play. This tactic works because most...
Yeah, there are other forces at play. This is, again, something that they all tend to ignore. Is funny, the irony, the hypocrisy. Yeah, just like we talk about horizons, there are many more things at play. There's all the conditions and everything that's happening around you that are at play. In fact, that goes for anything. There are always other things at play that we don't know. There's magnetism, electromagnetism, there's frequencies, yeah. Anyway.
Most people don't remember the second law of thermodynamics from school. And to be honest, why would you? So
yeah, so again, this is something that Dan hasn't obviously taken the time to even understand, but so he's fobbing it off. Oh, why would you? Why would you learn about because if you do investigate the law of thermodynamics and you compare it with reality, okay, fine, but then you compare it with the heliocentric model and the globe idea, doesn't work. Again, we're in a system that is cyclical, and you know the globers have taken advantage of this. This is the pseudoscience, because part of science is making predictions, but they've twisted that, they've taken that and said, oh well, I can predict a sunset or a sunrise or an eclipse, and so that means that my model is correct. When all you've done is create a model that has chosen an arbitrary reference point as per Einstein's relativity, and said, okay, I'm going to assume that that is stationary and that is moving and that is moving and da-da-da. Yeah?
when someone confidently misuses it, it can sound convincing. But when you slow down and dissect it all, it falls apart.
Well, I would say that about the globe. This is it. When you dissect it, when you look at all these compartmentalized arguments, and then you look at the big picture, and you boil it down, as we were talking about, you know, we've got a lot of things that we say because we've been through the motions of breaking it all down. Again, you go and listen to, whether you listen to Nathan Oakley or the 24/7 guys, yeah, they've reached a point. A lot of us all have, but we've got different ways of expressing it, yeah. But we've all reached a point where we can summarize very succinctly all this other mishmash of stuff, yeah, these knots that we were tied in, and we've unraveled everything and made some very succinct understandings, and that's science.
And it's the same with other scientific words and phrases. The smarter flat earthers will use this tactic all the time. If you've had no further education in science, they can sound compelling.
So if you've had no further education in science, and this is of course a problem that we are facing, because again we're dealing with egos and identity, yeah. So actually, if you are a novice and you haven't been indoctrinated with this whole thing, and you haven't created an attachment to the globe and aliens and space travel and trying to get off this rock, it's basically a form of escapism, yeah. But if you haven't, and you're kind of fresh to all of it, then you can actually see it without the bias. You can evaluate it with a broader perspective, yeah. But if you've invested time, money, energy in becoming a scientist, adopting the narrative, scoring points, passing tests, in order to get to a certain position in which you pride yourself on, then yes, it's going to be much more difficult to let go of that. Yeah, you are, you're not going to evaluate your belief. This is the problem we see. It's just egos attached to their beliefs. Yeah, and Dan here, rather than telling hard truths, he's just creating content that is to appease all these other cowards that want to stay stuck in their cosmological model of a material world where you're not responsible for anything you think or do. It's all an accident. There's no God. Their God becomes gravity. Yeah. And this becomes apparent when you start looking into this, as I was saying in the last stream, a lot of the issues and the problems we have are because actually what we're trying to do is we are trying to regain our contact with God, the Godhead. Yeah, we want to get back to that connection with the source, but then things like drugs, alcohol, beliefs, materialism, identity, ego basically just kind of takes over as a replacement for that connection that we once had before we were indoctrinated. Yeah. I'm just having a look through. V. Thomas, hello. If you want to be practical physicists, you also have to dump the ego and look for flaws in your experiments. Yes, exactly, V. Thomas, and that's what we're doing. Yeah, and of course, I I understand in a way that the globe earther feels that they think that the flat earther has some kind of superiority complex, or that we're high on this idea that we know something that they don't, or that we're rebelling against consensus or whatever. But no, it's more about just trying to say, hey, you can be free. We want you to be free. We want to share this freedom. You don't have to be tied up in knots over this imaginary cosmological model. Yeah, you can be free, and you can go back to that connection with God, and it's okay. Yeah, it's scary, but it's all right.
And is certainly one of the more dangerous tricks they use in trying to convince the masses. Right, let's move on to trick number 4, which is...
We said, what was he talking about? Oh, his trick. That was trick number 3, in which sciencey sounding words. So he's basically saying that when you use sciencey sounding words that they don't get, or they haven't analysed, or haven't scrutinised, or thought about, that's apparently a trick, because they're too pig-headed and scared to actually think about it properly. Yeah, so actually it's not a trick, it's just how it is. Tony Dixon, Dan has mentioned perspective, which is an intangible visual phenomena, and gas and gas pressure, none of which prove the impossible globe Earth. He has had an emotional attachment with since early childhood. Exactly, Tony. Again, you're very good at putting these things succinctly. So, yeah, that's so true. Exactly what we're saying, yeah. Okay. What's that? The Jolly Man. Einstein invented calculated the speed of light calculation. He actually used Srinivasa Ramanuja's calculations that he experienced while having a spiritual experience with a Hindu god in a cave. Oh, really? I didn't know that, Jolly Man. Interesting. Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? You know, Einstein did what Newton did, and you know, Newton really what he was good at was standardizing things. He made the gold standard for the British monarchy, right? So he standardized the coinage, right? So, you know, this is what these mathematicians have done. This is what they've always been fighting over, and the same goes for the speed of light. They just create and you know, what is it they've done? They've basically, with the speed of light, they've basically associated it with a meter length. So it doesn't matter what the speed of light actually is. The way they mathematically calculate it is based on the distance it travels in a meter, and they've generalized it, and they've rounded it off. Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be precise, but they've just had to do that. They've generalized it for their or standardized it basically for their mathematics. Yeah, but the speed of light does change, and because of, you know, refraction is a change in the speed of light. It's changing direction. Yeah. It's maybe slowing down, or, you know, if light has to travel through something, if it does travel, then it might well slow down. Yeah, but again, it's not something that you can actually definitively measure over great distances either. How can you? Timothy P. Southwick, hello my friend, Constance B. and friends and everyone in chat, much love to you all. Just going to listen with you all, and everyone be well. Thank you very much, Timothy. Well, thanks for coming along. Good to see you. Justin Johnson. Okay. All right. Let's carry on with Pseudoscience Dan.
When they say it's all CGI, this one drives me up the wall. They just claim that everything's fake. It's like an escape hatch for them.
No, well, that's wrong. Again, you've taken that out of context. Let's just hear the rest of what he's got to say. But I just want to say that, you know, analogies aren't proof. That's something I had written down. And yeah, basically heliocentrism, the Big Bang, goes against the laws of thermodynamics anyway. Right, it's not all CGI. The first thing, you know, that a lot of us realised is that you know, this is Flat Earth 101 is well, okay, where are the images or the photographs of the Earth from space? And you start looking into them, you actually start studying them and scrutinising them and using a scientific mindset, and you watch something like A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, or you listen to was it Bart Simmons, the Blue Marble creator, yeah, where they take strips of data and they did literally create a composite, and he's messing around and, oh, well, I think it might look like this, and so I'll do this. Yeah. So yeah, when you actually start looking for real photographs of the Earth from space, you can't find any. And then you look at the moon landing pics and you realize that they were faked. It's obvious. The proportions are wrong, and you can see the square. Again, this actually takes some detective work, and of course you'll only embark on that detective work if you are willing to accept that you believed a lie. If you don't want to give up that lie, then you just ignore that. One of the photographs I love is from, you've got that hill in the background where the astronauts went to kind of on Earth, where they went to kind of find some terrain that was a little bit like the moon, and I suppose do some trials or what have you. But then that same landscape is seen on the moon. So on the photographs of the moon. So they've actually taken, just like we see the NASA stuff on what's the island in Canada? Yeah. Being passed off as Mars. Yeah. So this is it. We know they've already lied. Just a little bit of scrutiny makes you realize that there are just too many discrepancies and obvious fakery that proves that they didn't go to the moon. They didn't go anywhere. You saw a rocket go up, but you don't know if men were in a capsule going around the Earth and then being slingshotted to the moon. I mean, either way, even if they thought they could do it, it's just far too risky. They wouldn't risk losing these guys in space anyway, would they? They would fake it, and we've seen all of that. We see it continually now. We see the fake wars being drummed up, the space race. We know that it was just saber rattling, and it was who can pull off the biggest spectacle to claim ownership of the skies. Yeah, it really was. It was a geopolitical event. And yes, of course, the Apollo, the pics of the Earth from Apollo were apparently the first time that there were actual pictures of the entire Earth in space, or the globe Earth in space. Yeah. So until then, even though we'd had 500 years of globe belief, it had never been proven, because no one had ever seen the Earth from space, and no one had ever measured any curvature anyway. Yeah. So, alrighty. So, again, it's about demanding discernment. It's like, in fact, what I will do now is just bring up this one. This winged horse. There's a photograph of a winged horse. So it must be true, right? Yeah, there's a photo. Someone must have taken that. There must be a horse with wings flying about somewhere. Even though this is something that we've never seen for ourselves, it's not naturally occurring. There's a photo there. Now, does that look Photoshop? Could you tell that's fake? Looks very real, really. But we know it's fake because it's not something we see in reality. Horses don't fly. Yeah. Let me turn that off. Back to Dan.
And probably one of the most common tricks that they use. And actually, it's intellectually lazy, and also probably the most difficult trick to counter.
It's not intellectually lazy. It's intellectually lazy to say, there are millions of photographs of Earth from space, but without actually looking into them and just going along with the narrative and not investigating, not scrutinizing. That's intellectually lazy. Yeah, the globers are the ones that are intellectually lazy. It's the flat earthers that have used their intellect without the bias without their belief to actually examine the belief and realize that it is just a belief, and actually that, you know, using that intellectual acumen brings wisdom, and then you realize that you were in a cult, and you by this process of actually evaluating what we've been shown, what we've been told to believe, you realize that it is all just imaginary stuff. It is all just a cult that we were indoctrinated into unwittingly, because it was just part of our culture and our education from our early years.
Because it doesn't try to explain anything, it just dismisses everything.
No, again, doesn't. No, we don't dismiss everything, but we just, you know, yeah. I've already said what I need to say about that. Yeah.
Photo of Earth, fake. NASA rocket launch, CGI.
Okay, so rocket launches, yeah, some people say they are CGI, but either way, even if you have a rocket that you see going up, that's not proof that it's going up and around a globe. As I said, you know, most of the time you've got a tiny capsule on the top which is said to have a satellite or people in it, but then that goes out of sight, and most of the rocket actually gets, you know, dumped in the ocean on the way, to a point where you can't even tell whether anything that was supposed to be in it was in it. Yeah.
Amateur telescope footage, NASA shill. It is truly endless. Here's the issue. Anything can be dismissed as fake if you truly want to. And that's not skepticism, by the way. That's denial. It's like...
No, it's not. It's not denial. And it's, yeah, it is skepticism, because, you know, when you see people on the ISS that are obviously on wires, or they're dropping things in what's supposed to be a zero-G environment, yeah, or, you know, they're using a GoPro lens and saying, oh, that's curvature, when really it's flat. Yeah, when they tell these outright lies, and when, for example, we saw just now, they're lying about mirages and, you know, that's a mirage. Yeah, when they get caught in their lies, then, yeah, we have every right to be skeptical. And again, when reality and real physics proves that the imaginary heliocentric model is wrong, again with the law of thermodynamics and all these other things, entropy, yeah, they just prove that the globe is impossible.
arguing that it's not raining because you're stood under an umbrella not getting wet.
Another ridiculous analogy. So he says, yeah, it's like arguing you're under an umbrella, you're not getting wet. Well, the thing is, Dan, again, you just take reality rather than coming up with these analogies that don't mean anything. You know, just you say there's a curve, but that's never seen or measured. And then you say that there's gravity, which is never seen or measured either. You can't, there isn't this force of gravity just existing on its own. Yeah. So you can't prove any of these things. Yeah.
And think about the scale of this one. Thousands of engineers and astronauts and observatories and universities.
So this is the usual appeal to incredulity, yeah, where you just can't believe or comprehend that everybody is in on it. So I just wrote down here that everybody just an invested believer, like Dan. Engineers don't care, and all these things he mentioned. Universities, scientists, for the most part, any scientific endeavor doesn't involve any kind of belief that we're on a globe. Yeah, there's no one using bendy water. Yeah, navigation doesn't require you to compensate for being on a curved Earth, right? Water, all these things. Yeah, and so it's not that people are in on it. It's just like they're just like you, Dan. They just believe it, and they refuse to question it. And they refuse to use intellectual honesty, and they are invested in it, And so for the most part, they just don't think about it. And it's not until you start questioning it and you start thinking about it and you start breaking it down and using intellectual honesty that you realize that the Earth is not a globe and it's a level plane. But you also realize that you do not have the ability to actually know where we are and what it is and how it all really works and how it came about in the first place. Yeah. So, yeah, again, it's just an appeal to incredulity. Yeah. People aren't in on it. And even the people in, like, for example, you know, the people making a rover to go to Mars or put something in a space rocket. Sure, they make the rocket. Maybe we'll get to this point later, but it's all about, you know, it's all of this. This whole space thing is about creating jobs. It gives people something to do, and it's a money funding thing. In fact, we will come to that in a second. Yeah, but you know, there's no one that actually relies on, in any profession, that relies on the Earth being a globe whatsoever. Makes no difference.
Backyard astronomers, all in on it. Not one credible leak. Not one defector with hard evidence. It's just vibes. Not.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's, again, just appeal to incredulity. And everyone's in the same boat there. And it's the same as political beliefs or religious beliefs, yeah? There are billions and billions of people that have a certain religion or religious perspective, and they believe in certain things because that's what they've been taught. Yeah, look at the conflicts we're having in the world right now because of people with different beliefs, different faiths, different religions. Yeah, and that's what heliocentrism is. It's a religion. It's a religious belief. And you know, rather than just having discussions, coming to the table and being intellectually honest about what you can or can't prove, then there's this fighting. Yeah. So this is, you know, this is what Dan does. He comes out on the offensive, fighting, yeah, creating the division, yeah, and that's what some of the guys in chat are doing right now, creating division, instead of just being at a state of acceptance and the limitations of our knowledge. There's people trying to push certain beliefs and tell you you're stupid or you're indoctrinated for not believing them when they've got nothing to actually prove it anyway. Okay. Not too long now.
Not to mention, why spend billions on launches and satellites if you're just going to fake it? Just release an old photo with a blue filter and...
Right, okay, this is another common thing that the globe earth will say. Why spend billions on faking it? Well, again, it's an industry. We have this military industrial complex, and as I said, first of all, it creates jobs, you know, for politicians or for a country. If they have a space program, they've got somewhere to direct resources. They've got projects for people to work on, and of course, byproducts of, you know, what NASA does, for example. NASA's an agency, and it just kind of, you've seen the stories where, for example, NASA needs some washers, and so they get some small company, engineering firm or whatever, to make washers for them, yeah, and then they're kind of selling them on, or they're using them. But of course, this, and then you've got military developments, right? Again, if you sign up for working for NASA, you're going to sign non-disclosure agreements, and anything that you invent, you might invent some kind of tool. Okay, we need to get to this bolt here, or we need things to be a certain shape, and there's no standard tool that we can use, so we're going to invent a tool. And then, so if you're working for NASA and you invent a tool, that's not going to be your intellectual property. It's going to be NASA's intellectual property, and then they'll sell it on. So it's just it's a money-making thing. People build these rovers, and they, you know, battery reserves or solar panels and this and that. This is all tech that's going to be sold on and used in the consumer market. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that someone like Dan just doesn't understand. They don't understand how the real world works. Yeah, I've had experience of this where I was working for the newspaper, and then these people came over. It was a corporation that were trying to sell sensors. They were just this particular type of sensor that they developed in the UK or wherever they developed it. But it was a British company, but they were coming in. They were being introduced to the local government by the British embassy, by the British government. Okay, so they were being ushered in to push their product, right? And then they were, they had these meetings with the local governor and the councillors and say, well, look, you could use this sensor for traffic congestion, for measuring floodwater levels, this and that. You can do all these different things with it. Yeah. So they were basically coming over and selling this tech. And so, yeah, there's this pyramid of money making being created. Yeah, that's how the world actually works. That's, money makes the world go around, literally. Yeah. And then, so what I was going to point out was, where was it? Yeah. So let's just have a look at this. I'm not sure if you can see this. Okay. This is just an example of the military-industrial complex where this is an article from years ago, but $37 screws, $7,622 coffee maker, $640 toilet seats, suppliers to our military just won't be oversold. So this basically kind of goes on about, remember, for example, Halliburton, when they were, basically procuring stuff. According to the US attorney, the company grossly inflated prices intentionally on about 45 contracts from 1975 to 1984, and that's what NASA is. So they create these contracts with people. Yeah. So okay, you give us the washers, you give us the bolts, you give us these moldings or whatever. You give us these computers, and so it's all being there's a middleman. Yeah, so they get the money from the taxpayer. Okay, but we need $1 trillion, but then we need $1 trillion more, and a few more billion over here and over there, and that people control that money, and then they go and buy things. They might buy the washers for tuppence a piece, but then invoices are created. Yeah, so it's just this is just the way it is, and these are things that have been known to be, they've been proven. Yeah, so yeah, do you see what I mean? It's like you just look at reality, you look at how people operate, really, how politicians, how business operates, how the military and industrial complex operates. Yeah, so that's why, Dan, they spend billions of dollars to fake it, because they're making billions of dollars. Yeah, and it's just all a show. It's just a Hollywood show, and they're just inflating the prices. Yeah, this is how it works. Yeah, it's just like when you're doing your YouTube videos, you're getting a little bit of the money that's generated because there's advertisers paying through the nose to have their content displayed. Yeah, but YouTube's in the middle, taking from both, taking from you, just giving you a pittance for all your creation and your content. Yeah, they're taking money hand over fist. Yeah, so you're just feeding the beast. Yeah, that's all you're doing.
Save the cash. The real trick here, of course, is not disproving the globe, it's sowing seeds of doubt. Over
No, again, it's
and over and over and over. If they
yeah, it's just about telling you simple things like, the gas pressure next to a vacuum, the bendy water you believe in. Yeah, horizons are not. It's just telling you reality over and over and over and over again, Dan, until you get it, until you begrudgingly accept that perspective governs our observations, and the geometry of perspective has been hijacked and turned into an imaginary curve, and Einstein's principles of relativity have been hijacked by the heliocentrists. Yeah, we just got to keep pointing this out over and over and over again, Dan, until it gets through your thick heads. Yeah.
They can convince you not to trust anything, then nothing you get shown will matter. And that
yeah, trust nothing that you're shown, because you have to experience it and measure it for yourself. But if I'm shown a ship that is obviously further away than we should be able to see it, then that immediately debunks the globe. If I see the horizon is at my eye level and rises with me, that debunks the globe. Yeah. If I see that things can be cut off across a level surface, that debunks the globe. Yeah. And if I use real physics, that debunks the globe.
That brings us nicely onto trick number 5, gut feelings over evidence. This is maybe the sneakiest trick of all, the appeal to intuition. They say, trust your senses, or the earth looks flat to me, or I can't feel myself spinning. And yeah, of course you don't feel like you're spinning. You're on a giant, smooth moving sphere in a mostly uniform gravitational field.
So there you go, another claim. You're on a sphere in a mostly whatever moving rotational field. Yeah. Okay, prove it. That's what you got to prove. Where's the curve? Where's the spin? Yeah, where's any of this? Nowhere. You're just, that's your model, and it's no different to not moving. So, okay, you're basically saying, yeah, you can't feel motion, and our senses. When we say trust our senses, because we've got five senses, yeah, and they're giving us all kinds of information, consciously and subconsciously. Yeah, and especially our eyes. Again, when we understand how our eyes work and how perspective works, that's not curvature. Yeah, and when we discern between linear motion and circular acceleration, they are two different things. But you know, what the glober will do is conflate the two and say they're both the same when they're not. In reality, they're not. Spin is acceleration. Even if you're spinning at a constant speed, it's actually constant acceleration because you're changing direction. That's not the same as conservation of linear momentum. Yeah? Okay.
There's no sudden acceleration to detect, but that's the genius of this trick. The Earth doesn't look curved at a local level, and yeah, it doesn't feel like we're moving.
So yeah, why would you assume that it is? Why would you ignore what your senses are telling you and then just believe something that completely is contrary to that? Because of what? Because of a bias, because of a presupposed heliocentric model. Yeah.
And therefore, trust your senses. But let's be honest, your senses are only good for local, everyday stuff. And they can be easily tricked. More on the senses in another video.
Yeah, that's true. Optical illusions, we can be very easily deceived. Yes. And again, this is the problem. This is why the globe Earth belief exists, because everyone got deceived, told not to trust your senses, and just believe something completely contrary to what they tell us. Yeah? And we would detect movement. If there's an earthquake, we know about it. Yeah. If we accelerate, we know about it. And that's what the globe is supposed to be doing.
And of course, you don't feel the motion in a smooth flight. You don't sense magnetic field.
Okay. So he talks about linear motion. You don't feel the motion in a smooth flight. And then comparing that to the idea that we should not feel any movement on a rotating sphere. No, that's a completely wrong analogy to make, because if you do put yourself on a sphere, you experience that acceleration. Yeah.
And you don't see bacteria, but they are there.
Okay, a good point. You don't see magnetism, but we can detect it. We've got tools we can use to detect. We can see those ferrocells. You can see the magnetic lines. Yeah, compasses use magnetic lines. We know they're there. They can directly measure magnetism. We can do that. We know it exists. Bacteria, yes, we can't see it, but we can zoom in on it at a microscope. But let's take, for example, the corona thingy. You know, we were given images of a thing, a globule. Did anyone actually see a real corona thingy under a microscope? No, we were just given these images. So everyone knows what that looks like, just like everyone knows what the globe looks like. We've never actually seen it for ourselves. And again, you know, it's not like magnetism that you know is there and you can measure. You can't measure the so-called force of gravity on its own like you can with magnetism, can you? You can't do that. Yeah, so you've got this non-existent pseudo force that just doesn't exist no matter what you try to measure it with. Yeah. And the same with the spin and the curve. Doesn't exist. Yeah. Electromagnetic waves exist and we can see them, we can measure them. Bacteria exists, and they often use this in analogy. Well, you know, a heart or a brain or something like that. And it's like, yeah, we all know what brains and hearts look like. We can take them out of dead bodies, and you know, we've seen them. We know they exist for sure. You might well have held one or seen one in a jar or something, yeah. And you can look all around it and you can measure it and you can check its dimensions. You can't do that with the Earth because you don't, you know, it's not something that you can take that outside perspective of. So when they come up with these analogies, it's ridiculous. It just shows that they aren't thinking it through. They're not using discernment to discern between things that you can physically see, measure and touch and see from this external perspective. And then, you know, they think that just because someone knows how to read the globe coordinate system, that the globe exists. And that gives them the same validity as a heart surgeon looking at a heart and understanding the inner workings of a heart, because you can dissect it and you can't dissect the Earth. Yeah. So again, you know, we're told all these things about the inside of the Earth, which are just imaginary things. Yeah. And you've got these contradictions with the Earth allegedly being a molten iron core, but then that would mean it has passed its Curry point where it loses its magnetism. So, you know, although you're saying the magnetic iron core is spinning to create the magnetism, again, that's just, you know, that's just assuming something based on something that you can kind of create. You can create, if you have that spin, you can create electromagnetism, right? So there's this kind of attachment or connection made, but it's not something that anyone actually verifies, and it contradicts so many other aspects of real physics. Yeah. So, you know, moot points, Dan. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, just as usual, no demonstrations, just refuting with idiotic arguments.
Science exists because our intuition is limited. The sun looked like it moved around us until we discovered the heliocentric system.
Well, no one discovered the heliocentric system. No one discovered that the Earth is a globe. Massive misconception here. In fact, Copernicus had to come up with a whole bunch of assumptions. And if you think about it, again, if you think about the whole Einstein connection there, you know, it was just, you know, if Einstein was correct in assuming or in saying that you can take any point and have a fixed reference point, then why would you assume that the Earth is moving? You know, how is that ever determined? So okay, you see what I'm saying? You take Einstein's principles and you can imagine that the sun is stationary, or you can imagine that the Earth is stationary, or you can put yourself on the moon or something like that, and you can make the other things move. Yeah, that is what you can actually ascertain by looking at all this, is you realize that, well, I can make up any story I want and I can't be proven right or wrong. But the fact is that Earth is level, the water on it is level, and it flows down curves, and no globie can actually define or determine the difference between horizontal level and curved level. So they are never scientific about it, because when it comes to actually really physically, empirically determining these things, these claims that they make about the direction of down and things like that, they can't actually do them. They just say, oh, well, it's just the same as that. It's the same but different. It's childish. It's really childish. Yeah.
Heavy things should fall faster than light ones until Galileo chucked things off the Leaning Tower. Flat Earth weaponises how things seem because it sounds more relatable than a physics book. But
So again, it's no one's weaponizing this. Yes, in a way, it is a weapon against reality. Is a weapon against this pseudoscience. You look at reality, you assess it, and that is a weapon. Reality destroys the globe. Water destroys the globe. Yeah. It's the globe that actually weaponizes mathematical cosmological models to take you away from reality. Yeah. And it turns that heliocentrism is a religion. Yeah. That's their Bible. Yeah. So it's a weapon. Yeah. But reality is relatable.
in science, seeming doesn't make it so.
Yes, in science you have to measure things. So again, just because it might seem that you're on a globe because you look at the sun doing this or that, yeah, doesn't make it true, Dan and Duffy and Wolfie and all your other guys, yeah? Okay? Just because the horizon seems to be an edge doesn't mean that you live on a globe, yeah? Just because the sun seems to move across the sky and so does the moon, it doesn't mean that you're on a spinning globe, yeah? So you're right, Dan, you're absolutely right. So take those words and apply them to your own belief, yeah? Seeming isn't science. Measuring is science. And when we measure reality, it's a level plane. And for all intents and purposes, it's a stationary one too, yeah? When we actually measure reality.
Measuring does. So those are the 5 tricks I've highlighted today, but there are of course many, many more. Not experiments or discoveries or evidence, just rhetorical sleight of hand. And
oh yeah, I think he's talking about himself there, yeah? No evidence, no experiments, no demonstrations, just rhetorical sleight of hand. That's exactly what the Globers do. So I'm going to wrap this up with just I kind of titled this five truths, yeah? So I just wrote them down on the board here just so I remembered them myself, yeah? So rather than these 5 tricks, let's just have 5 truths for the flat Earth. So we could say that number 1, Einstein was correct, that you can't tell what's moving. Okay, that's a truth. Okay, so the Earth is demonstrably, measurably level, and the way we do everything on it means it's level and stationary. It doesn't spin beneath us or anything like that. Okay, yeah. So, but what Einstein said is true is that you can't tell. You can observe, and things might seem to be moving, but you can't really know. Yeah, there's a limit there, and that's the beauty of this. In a way, it's telling us. It's saying, hey, you can't ever work this out. So don't waste your time arguing about beliefs about what's moving and what's not. Yeah, it's all relative anyway. Yeah, that's the first truth. Second truth is that horizons are your eye level. Yeah, this is a truth that doesn't necessarily prove the dimensions of the Earth at all. It just proves that the Earth isn't a globe, because your horizons are manufactured in your eyes. They are subjective. They prove just the fact that they rise with you, yeah, that they're not a fixed geometric form of the Earth, yeah. So that's truth number 2. Truth number 3, the geometry of perspective is the imaginary curve, yeah. So when someone like Nathan Oakley succinctly says, you know, they hijack perspective, that's exactly what it is. They've taken perspective, used geometry to describe it, and that's become your globe. So again, the distance that we see to this horizon is true. Yeah? on a level surface. It doesn't mean we're on a globe. That's how it works on a level surface. Yeah. And yeah, number 4, real science proves the Earth is flat. Yeah. Real science, the physics of water. Yeah. Water leveling. Yeah. The pressure. All, you know, all these real demonstrable aspects of science, not the pseudoscience, not the models of cosmological models, yeah, but real science in the real world proves. Gyroscopes, whatever it is, yeah, all these things, everything we do on the Earth or above the Earth shows us that the Earth is a level plane. Yeah, science proves it. Yeah, and 5, level is horizontal. True level is horizontal. Whether you describe it as perpendicular to down, it's still horizontal. In the real world, level is horizontal. And the vertical lines are parallel. That's reality. That is the real, that's how engineers, that's how builders, that's how anyone actually works, operates on the Earth. Yeah. Parallel lines don't converge or diverge. Yeah. They, yeah, vertical lines, they're parallel. Parallel lines are parallel. Yeah. That's reality. That is how we build things. Yeah. So there you go. 5 truths. Yeah. Alrighty. Dr. Evils, hi. Thanks for coming in. Dan MC, hello there. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. It is flat. Hello. The TFE did nothing for me. The Earth is flat and always has been and will be. Taboo Conspiracy did a video on repeating sun in Antarctica while TFE was filming the supposed 24-hour. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Again, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the TFE just reiterated the nonsense and showed that they are just cowards, creating false dichotomies, straw man arguments, pointing at the sun, and actually showing us, as David Banner likes to point out, you know, showing us that we got a sun that circles around us. Yeah, that's how it seems to be. That's how we can measure it to be. Yeah. Okay. Dan MC, but did he really trust the science enough to get jabbed, I wonder? Yeah. Oh, okay, Dr. Evils, your pet has been suffering. Okay, been to the vet, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So look, yeah, I'm going to wrap this up. Wow, it's already 4 in the morning for me. It's been great. Just quickly, the Jolly Man. Bats and various insects use specific spectrum of light to hunt at night. Turns out it's not a reflection of sunlight, but a different light source. Nature is. Yes, I know. It's incredible, isn't it, Jolly Man? This is it. Nature is amazing and it's wonderful, and you know we can all be in awe of this creation that we find ourselves in, and that's really it, isn't it? You know, all of this is about being free from those shackles. But people like SciManDan, you know, they're shackled to their content creation, and they dare not. They've got their identity. They dare not think out of the box. The only thing they can do, the only thing they can do is make shit up, make up accusations and very hypocritical ones at that. Yeah. So thank you, SciManDan, for that. Oh, yeah, David Banner, check my super chat. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, I know. Thank you. I know you sent me some earlier on, but okay, hang on. Did I miss something? Oh my good, Tony. Oh, Tony, thank you, Tony Whitcomb. There never be a horizon that rises to eye level on a ball. It's demonstrated always. Yes, thank you, Tony. I'm so sorry I missed that. Yeah, it's okay, but I've got there eventually. Good. Yeah. There never be a horizon that rises to eye level on a ball. Exactly. This is again something that we looked into. Their whole idea is that what we see is a fixed geometry, isn't it? Yeah, but our eyes show us that that's not what's happening, and it's ridiculous. So at one point they say the Earth is really big, and you can't see the curvature until you get really high. But then, you know, right at the beginning of the video, Dan was pointing out how you can see ships disappearing down this curve just a few miles in front of you, but the Earth's really big. Again, just contradictions in their argument. So, oh, thank you very much, Tony. I've just realised that I can heart that. Okay, appreciate it, Tony. It does help. Struggling a bit here, I must admit. I'm doing a lot of work, editing, but I've got a lot of bills as well. And maybe one day I'll just kind of maybe do a video about what it's like to be a foreigner in Thailand. So this is a whole different kettle of fish where, you know, there's a lot of limitations on what I can do here as a foreigner in Thailand. And I am thinking of going back to the UK as soon as I can, not just for me, but for my family. I want my kids to get there. And, you know, I was watching some of the guys in what is it? They were in Cirencester, some of the Flat Earth guys in Cirencester. Trinity 4 was there, you know, and they were out there doing their talking in public. And I would love to be doing that kind of thing. I can't do that kind of thing here. I've got to keep a low profile. But, you know, it'd be nice to go back. And frankly, my kids could do with being in an environment where, you know, Thailand's very lackadaisical. There's a lot of safety issues. There's a lot of, you know, it's very behind in many respects. You know, they've adopted technology very quickly, but, you know, not with the kind of wisdom that some of us might have in the West. And safety standards have never improved. And yeah, so despite all the crap that's going on in the UK, I actually would love to go back, and I really am trying to make a beeline for getting back there and eventually getting my family over there. So, you know, with the super chats, you know, thank you, Tony, and thank you, David. These are very welcome, and you know, they do get kind of put away so that I can start saving. So I very much appreciate it. I hope I haven't missed anyone else. Let me just check. You know, so yeah, I think that's it. I'm sorry if I'm not able to keep up with your chats. It's great that I see a lot of you are having a heated conversation about this and that. So that's all good though. Thank you. All right then. Okay. Thank you, Constance B. That's very nice of you. Thank you, Zeus Scott. I'm only a good orator about things that I kind of have investigated and feel passionate about, yeah? But yeah, I am passionate about just setting people free. Again, this has always been about creating understanding, and if going through Dan's video has created some understanding, I don't expect Dan to understand it or take any of it on board, but it at least is hopefully beneficial for bystanders, yeah? So, yeah. Appreciate that. So, all right, look, thanks very much for coming in, and thank you again to David and Tony for helping out there. Really appreciate it. And let's do more of these. I hope it's not been too boring and I haven't been talking too much. So thanks to everyone for coming in. Yeah, take it easy, and we'll catch up soon. All right.